Thank you for staying with us. In Nigeria, many citizens struggle to access affordable housing, exacerbating social and economic challenges. With a staggering housing deficit of over 20 million units, the country has long needed a solution. To address this, the Renewed Hope Initiative has introduced the MREIF Real Estate Investment Fund, MREIF, aiming to provide affordable housing solutions. MREIF provides long-term, low-interest mortgages, making home ownership a tangible reality for ordinary Nigerians. This initiative has the potential to revolutionize housing finance in Nigeria, providing a much-needed boost to the sector. Joining us in the studio is Portfolio Manager, MREIF Real Estate Investment Fund, that's MREIF, Ojagulu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, just break this down for the layman perhaps who is watching us and for the understanding of every person, how this is different from the National Housing Program that we already have and perhaps the aim, what it aims to achieve at the end of the day.
All right, thank you. So, the housing deficit remains a challenge, currently estimated at about 20 million units in Nigeria. Several programs have been rolled out by the federal government to address this in time past, but doesn't quite meet, the objectives, either because of very long turnaround time to access such funds, or bureaucracy and all that. MREIF is different in the sense that first, it is a public-private partnership. So the federal government led this initiative, and it's a 1 trillion naira program where you have the federal government investing, and you also have some institutional investors from the private sector that have, come up or put together. Right now, we have a series of 250 billion to make mortgages affordable at 12%. And the tenor for the MREIF loans is actually up to 20 years. So definitely it's different because you have the efficiency that comes from the private sector.
If the person dies within that 20 years, what happens if the person dies?
Definitely the property would have to be, there will be a foreclosure. The property will have to be taken over because obviously the income that person earns is what should be the repayment for the loan. So the fund will have to move on the property and take it over.
So that to family,
other family members.
Maybe someone else to take over, next of kin or thereabout.
No, it's not transferable. It's not transferable because the loan is a contractual obligation between the borrower, which is the person who bought the home, and the fund.
Okay. We've seen programs like this in other countries, where you put maybe a 30% down payment of the cost of the house, and then the rest is spread for like 30 years. Where it is different from MREIF is that the interest is single digit. I'm wondering why we are having problems in Nigeria to make single digit interest for things like this. Why 12%? Why not 8? Why not 7?
Oh, thank you very much. So what I can say about that is the blending between the funding coming from the federal government and private investors is what has even crashed the rate to 12%. Ordinarily, in the Nigerian environment right now, interest rates hover from 30% upwards.
Yes, exactly.
So if you're going to get a commercial mortgage in Nigeria today, you are going to be paying a 30% or more interest rate. So some private investors came together, and then the government also came together. So by the time you blend, they're almost next to nothing cost coming from the government, and then the commercial rates coming from the private investors, then you're able to achieve the 12%. I mean, it's something that we expect to continue to get better, but 12% right now is a very, very good start.
It's a gift.
Well, if you recall, from Vision 2010 to National Housing Policy of the 2012, Nigeria had over dozens of blueprints. So why should Nigeria believe this particular one, that this fund will not end up like others.
Others, yeah.
And the fact that they will not be bogged down in bureaucracy and urban elite capture.
All right, thank you very much. So, like I mentioned earlier, this is a public-private partnership. We have a fund manager, ARM, and ARM has a track record of over 30 years, as fund manager. So, the efficiency, or rather the inefficiency that will ordinarily be expected for things that have to do with purely publicly administered, you want to know that, you want to believe that will be sorted because you have a fund manager that's from the private sector. Other than that, one may want to think that, oh, this is going to be like the other housing initiatives, but this is really, really different. We have the Ministry of Finance incorporated as the supervisory board, but you have an active fund manager, ARM.
All right. Other perhaps housing programs that we have put up, one major challenge is access to it. A lot of persons have complained that, okay, accessing this, government says we should be part of it, but accessing this program has been a challenge. Talk to us about access, what qualifies anyone to have access to it, and what is even the minimum requirement needed to gain access as well.
All right, thank you. Let me just quickly mention that already we have about 174 mortgages disbursed under this scheme, and spread across the Federation. So this is accessible, very, very accessible. Why do I say accessible? You have different banks that are onboarded as banks that will access this fund and then on lend to intending home buyers. Right now we have EG Mortgage Bank, we have Infinity Trust Bank, we have Stanbic IBTC, we have access.
Okay, you may not want to mention names because that would be advertisement. I can't pay for it. Definitely.
Okay, then I'm counting. So more banks will be onboarded, will be brought on board to make this fund accessible. Requirements: you need a 20% equity contribution, so you need to bring a 20% down payment, as it were, for the value of the property, and then the bank will provide the remaining 80% to fund. You need to have an income, and then for the 20% equity contribution, you can even access your RSA balance from your pension fund, up to 25%. That has been on stream for some time now. So that can also add to your equity contribution. So essentially, it's your equity contribution. You identify a property you want to buy, and then you approach any of the banks that are onboarded on this fund right now.
Is there a cap on earnings in terms of, okay, if you're earning perhaps 100,000, for instance, or 50,000, is it also possible to access these funds? Or there's a limit, there's a cap to it?
It's possible. Essentially, this fund was created for low to middle income earners. Oh. It was created for low to medium income earners. And the most important thing is that the amount or the cost of the house you are going to take, you are able to make that repayment from your income. That is the most important thing. And don't forget that this is spread across 20 years. So you have a long time to pay, which is very, very different.
It can't go beyond 20. It's just
20 is the maximum.
Okay.
So
also, you can pay, if you have the funds, you can pay up.
You can pay off everything.
Yes, you can.
Oh,
you can. You're allowed to pay off if you have bulk sums that you can use to bring down the loan amount. So it's up to 20 years. So I think that's really flexible.
Well, taking into consideration the cost of building materials and all that, yeah, you alluded to what I want to ask now when you talked about the price of the building, or the building that you might need to buy. Reality on ground shows that the cost of building material is really, really high, and if this scheme is targeted at low and medium income earners, what's the reality that the final price will be something that I can handle, for example?
Well, thank you. That's a really, really good question, because yes, one thing this fund also provides, it doesn't just solve the issue of affordability, it also makes construction financing easier for the developers. So this fund actually has a portion, a part that takes care of if a developer has built properties. Oftentimes, the developers find it difficult to sell, of course. The fund provides what we call off-take guarantees, such that I have 100 units I have developed, and let's say I am able to sell a portion of it, but I find it difficult to sell the other portion. Then this fund will actually provide a guarantee that to the bank that is providing the funding for this developer, that if in the event that you are not able to sell this unit, we are going to take it up. So to answer the question of affordability, definitely that still has a lot to do with the macroeconomic environment. But the most important thing is that the fund is now cheaper than the ordinary commercial mortgages that you have around, and gives you a long time to be able to pay up. So yes, the affordability issue may still be there somewhat, but at least the fund makes it easier for people to pay over a long period of time.
And talking about affordability, we've had past different initiatives that said, yes, it's very affordable, but where the location they get the property, for you is remote from your workplace. So what makes MREIF different from these past initiatives, where what people would have is homes, not houses? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. So one very interesting thing about this fund is there is a platform. I mean, when you go to mreif.com.ng, you have a platform where you can have an array of properties. We have over 4,000 properties listed on that platform and spread across the entire federation, where you can make your selection.
Places that are accessible, not remotely.
Yes. So you have developers who have uploaded these properties on the platform, spread across the entire federation, and then somebody who wants to buy a property just goes in there, selects the property he wants to buy, and then you actually provide some further details, and then your application goes all the way from there. So yes, the platform gives you that wide range of properties across different locations. In addition to that, you are also allowed to identify a property of your choice and say, okay, fine, I want to finance this. So this is different from when the government has certain housing schemes and then you are restricted